Welcome back, everybody. Derrick Soo, your 2022 write-in Oakland mayoral candidate. Well, did you hear the news? It was just announced here at noontime. Joe Biden has just taken the first steps to decriminalize this. Medical marijuana, cannabis, 420, whatever you want to call it. But this is now has taken the first steps towards being legal all across America. He has decriminalized by pardoning all persons who had simple possession charges on them in the past for simply possessing cannabis. And so now it is no longer a crime. It's no longer an offense. And so my position on marijuana and cannabis has always been pro-cannabis. Always. It's always been there. Unlike Bill Clinton, who, when he was running for president, and it came up that, hey, Bill, did you smoke marijuana? We got pictures of you smoking. And his reply was, I didn't inhale. What? Okay, so we know that a president of the United States lied, as all of them do, and so we know he smoked it, because if it touches lips, you're not going to not inhale this in a joint, period. So we know Bill lied on that, just like he lied that he didn't have sex with Monica Lewinsky. So anyway, this never should have been put in the position that it was as a dangerous drug similar to meth, crystal meth, speed, crank, and a lot of other illicit drugs that are really dangerous and have caused death. Throughout my lifetime, and going back to this, I even smoked this back in high school when it was illegal and much more difficult to come by. And back in the, 77, I was in my junior year when I started, my friends got me started on this, and it wasn't any big deal. And we actually, as a teenager back then, I was drinking tequila. So I found that I liked smoking cannabis much more than drinking tequila. And the reason why is, number one, while I got loaded, the next morning I didn't feel like crap. And so I always enjoyed smoking marijuana when it was available, and up until I started my training and conditioning for my work with the U.S. government in counterterrorism, I did partake in this regularly. And I took, it took 2 years for me to get up to the qualifications and pass everything. And so that was more than enough time for me to clear my system of any cannabis, because up until even as I was retiring, forced retirement from my position, it still remained illegal to possess. It was just starting to come into its own with legislation asking for it to be used in medical marijuana. And that's where my interest came in a long time ago, because I've known a lot of the growers of cannabis, and in fact I've even had next door neighbors that were growing cannabis in secret rooms in their homes, garages on their property. And so it's never been a big deal. And again, one of the things I want to emphasize is since high school, I can't remember or ever hearing documentation or story of any person dying from overdose. And so, not like a lot of the drugs that we see here today, and even back yesterday, back in the day when I was in high school, there were a lot of dangerous drugs, speed, crank, cocaine was just a new item at that point, and just coming on the scene. So there were a lot more dangerous drugs out there than cannabis. But anyway, cannabis, the folks that have previously been convicted of cannabis crimes, now we can go back and purge those crimes, those nuisance crimes, we'll call them, and that will change the life of many people that have a conviction or even serve jail time, prison time for simple possession. And so that's going to help a lot of folks out. They're going to be able to possibly get better jobs, since that will be hopefully a sponge from their records. And I would hope that a majority of the states, counties, and cities provide some sort of compensation for harm. And because that was really a law legislated in, because the way that our medical laws are written, a plant-based chemical that has, like in marijuana, the THCs and CBDs, they cannot be patented by medical industry. And because of that, Howard Hughes was one of the folks that encouraged legislators to make sure that cannabis, marijuana, could not be sold in America, nor could it be used or even possessed in America, by saying that it had no medical value whatsoever. That's because he could not profit on it, because he was having a monopoly in the medical industry on certain drugs. And so this was, he couldn't do that. He couldn't patent this. So that's why this was created. And then we also saw Caucasian folks use the cannabis, that classification on cannabis, that it was had no medical value, and it was a dangerous drug. And so the white law was created to cause financial harm to people of color. And that's how it's been used mostly, because if you look at who gets prosecuted and who gets jail time versus who was growing it, because in the 70s, it was a lot of the Caucasian folks growing it. All of my friends who were growing it were Caucasian. There were no people of color growing it, and yet it was their primary customers were people of color. And so we were victimized. Rather than going after the grower, which they should have done, they went after us, the customers, the clients who partake of this. And that was wrong. That was just something simply available, and I didn't see any harm in it. I was smoking it regularly, like I said, for a number of years. And then after I was diagnosed with my cancers, I went back to my connections, my contacts in the industry, and asked for a more holistic medication, because what the Western medicine was giving me was making me very sick, ill, and had a lot of side effects on it. And so I wanted a more holistic route, rather than always feeling terrible or feeling disoriented. And so that's why when California first passed medical marijuana, where you can actually get a card to get this, I secured one. and I secured it with my doctor's blessing. My oncologist at Alameda Health Systems, he didn't say, no, you can't do that. And in fact, he was encouraging me to use this. He said, if this is making you feel better and still does the same things and accomplishes the same things, which is masking over some of the really bad side effects of chemotherapy, this is the best way to go, rather than having the after effects of Western medicine, the pills that were prescribed. And then some of those pills makes you very nauseated, and so they give you medication for the nausea. And so I always like this better. And it's easier, and it comes in a form that helps relax you. And actually, this isn't a bad product, because how many times have you seen somebody go on a rampage and they're angry and they're under the influence of marijuana? Not very often. In fact, I can't remember it, because typically marijuana makes you very drowsy, or it makes you very hungry, or both. And so I don't see this as a dangerous drug with no medical value, like Howard Hughes once said. And we see it every day now. The other day, I was just at a bus stop around the corner here, and a person just lit up, and he said, excuse me, does my smoke bother you? And I said, no, because I smoke myself, and so it's not a big deal. And he said, oh, okay, cool, because some people freak out over it, and I don't know why. There are some people who don't like the smell of it, and I agree. Some of the aromas on there isn't very pleasant. Sometimes it smells like skunks, sometimes burning rope. There's a lot of different smells, and so I get that. And so the secondhand smoke isn't at all pleasurable, but people can't get high off of that. But anyway, it's good to see that our country is coming around to their senses. This right here should never have been illegal. It has medical properties in it going back thousands of years with the Indians and Europe and Asia, where this was also available. And so we know that it has medical value, and now we're just starting to see what those things are and how we can make them better. And so it's good to see our country moving forward and decriminalizing marijuana, cannabis, because it never, like I said, it never should have been on the illegal list to begin with. And so anyway, go ahead, enjoy this. We're going to, in the coming years, soon see this become completely legal across the country, just like alcohol. Right now, a glass of wine or an overabundance of alcoholic drinks is far more dangerous than that. Thanks for joining me today. We'll be right back.